Hello, City of Port Aransas. We are here today for Hobby Day with the Parks and Recreation, and we have someone very special, a special guest who would like to introduce herself. So whenever you're ready.
My name is Anita Krampitz. I am a permanent resident of Port Aransas along with my husband John and our daughter Vanessa. We've lived here since 2014. During the winter of 2017, I met a very special lady by the name of Camille Scott, who was from Colorado. She introduced me that winter to Alcohol Inc. I have not done anything but Alcohol Inc. since then. That includes getting dinner on the table, getting the laundry done. I have done nothing but Alcohol Inc. So it became one of my passions. Here lately, during this last winter, I've taken additional classes from Sandy Fritz, who teaches at the Port Aransas Art Center, and she does a very different technique than what I do, but it's just as much fun, it's just as addictive. These behind me are some of the samples of what Alcohol Inc. looks like in the final product. Alcohol Inc. is a very brilliant, bright, alcohol-based ink. It dries fairly fast in its natural state. But when you add alcohol to it, it takes a little bit longer for it to dry. The process of what I do when I create my alcohol ink is I use a blowing technique on it, and I'll demonstrate that to you. You put alcohol ink on any non-porous surface. So that can be something like tile. It can be metal. I use a lot of things that I just happen to have at home on hand. This is on a certificate that was left over from a class. So it's that plastic coated paper that they use for student certificates. I have also used things like photo paper. Photo paper works great. It's what you can buy it at Office Depot. You can buy specialized paper called UPO paper, and it's a plastic paper that you can't tear it, you have to cut it. But it's similar to photo paper, but it's used for alcohol ink as well as watercolors, some of those other things. Then when I have to get really creative, because we in Port Aransas just don't have a lot of shopping available, I will take things like a glass picture frame, tear out the back, and do my alcohol ink on the back of that. So when it shows through, it's showing through the other side. So you're doing it in reverse, but this is just glass. And then this large one here is alcohol ink on a metal bulletin board. So I was being thrown away, I pick it up out of the trash, and this is what it turned into. So these are samples of alcohol ink. The cards are some of my favorite things to do. I give them away as hostess gifts, but those are fun to do. They're quick and easy. Their alcohol ink is sold at Hobby Lobby, Michael's, all of the regular stores. It's probably one of the more expensive places to purchase it because they only sell it in bottles of 3. If you go out on Amazon, they have what they call a pinata color, and you have all these colors, which is a great starter kit, and these sell for about $25. We have a blending solution that is purchased at Hobby Lobby. I don't use it because it's a little bit more expensive than plain 29% alcohol. 21% alcohol. The 70% will not work. It can only be 91, which is real difficult to find right now because of COVID. You probably will have to also order that off of Amazon. I can't find it at H-E-B, Walgreens, Dollar General. I just can't find it. But it has to be 91%. So, these is a sample of what alcohol ink looked like in the final product. And I'm going to go over to this table and I'm going to show you how it's actually done. All right, what I'm going to demonstrate today, I'm going to actually do on those tiles that you buy at Home Depot or Lowe's. They're about 15 cents each. These usually are created into coasters, which you then have to put a resin top on it, epoxy resin on top, otherwise it flakes off. So you want to make sure these are finished. You can also put these together and they make nice little trays. In order to start anything that is non-porous, such as glass, the metal, these tiles, it can be cup saucers, whatever it might be, you need to clean it first. The only time you don't clean it with alcohol is when you're using paper. It disintegrates the paper faster than what you need for it to do. So just take a cotton ball, clean it off real good. You want to get fingerprints, grease, whatever might have been on your hands when you were handling this. And you're going to ask me, now why do you have 4 tiles out there at the same time? What happens if you just put straight alcohol on your tile, it will dry real fast. When you put alcohol ink on the tiles and you add the alcohol to it, it takes forever to dry. It takes a long time for it to dry. I work on 4 at a time just in order to keep myself moving along. This is toxic. The fumes are toxic, so make sure you're working in a well-ventilated area or outside, but you don't want to breathe this in heavily. I always start with my background. There's a couple of different ways to make a background, and one of them is taking what they call a stamper. You can buy these, or you can use any kind of a stamper that you have, and I just put a piece of Velcro on it. And I add to that Velcro a piece of white felt. And I buy this at Hobby Lobby, and I cut it into squares. And I add alcohol to it. So that's kind of wetting that surface. And on this one, I think I'm going to have, no, not that one. More than one of these. I'm going to add a green, kind of an olive green background. So I put a couple drops on my stamp pad, add a little bit more alcohol, and I stamp. That's going to kind of make a pattern background. So that's one way to do it. Like I said, I work on more than one of these at a time. And if you're going to do a coaster set, you usually work on, if you work on all 4 of them at the same time, you can come up with more finished looking product. And I think Jordan can tell you that you can smell this alcohol where you are. It is fairly toxic. So here we go. So that becomes the background. From the background, we're going to begin to add to the top. And I'm going to take my trusty little piece of paper here and kind of fan it a little to get it to where it's drier. There's a website called Waiting for Paint to Dry, and it's devoted to alcohol ink because it lets you know that this does take a little while. I don't use a hair dryer, which can be done because it blows my ink very often in a direction that's not what I'm wanting. Now, this is Sunshine Yellow. It's one of my favorite colors. And I am going to drop this on the first one that we did. Then I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to start at an angle. So I'm adding the alcohol ink to it. And you will notice that it immediately begins to add a pattern on the edges of that alcohol ink. So I'm going to do this here. These will dry a little bit faster because I don't have as much alcohol in them. If you think, and it will do just like any other paint, it will pick up the paint underneath. The alcohol, rubbing alcohol actually reactivates the ink itself. So there's another pattern. Here we go. Here I'm going to add alcohol first on this one and then add my ink. And you just pick it up, you move it, however which way you want it to go. We're making petals is what we're actually making. If you notice, that one looks different than that one looks different than that one. You will begin to learn whether or not you want to put the alcohol on first or if you want to put the ink on first. Depends on what kind of a final effect that you're looking for. And because you can use almost anything that you have that is non-porous, you can experiment. This is a great medium to just experiment and see what happens. Not worry about it. All right, back to my first one. I'm going to add another petal. This time the petal is going the other direction. And I'm going to manipulate it by doing this. It reactivated the ink over here. It's beginning to pick up that green underneath. That's what causes the edges. So we're going to add that one there. I'm going to let it dry and see what happens because you never quite know what it's going to do. I'm going to add alcohol here, alcohol ink there. Now I'm going to add the alcohol. This is another technique that I use to manipulate my alcohol and my ink. Taking a straw, making sure that I am blowing out, not in, blow out. By the end of the day, it will be rather silly. It does get to you. So, but it is toxic. So this is not something that I would do with kids. I will show you at the end of this. A real fun thing to do with little kids that is not quite as toxic. And it gives them a sense of kind of doing the same thing that you might be doing so that they can follow suit. I'm going to add one more yellow over here. This one got kind of big. You never know quite what it's going to do. You have to be patient. I can tell you the very large painting I did over there, I worked on it every day for about 2 weeks. Adding leaves. It's all done in layers. Okay, let's go back to the first one. I'm going to add one more yellow and a third. That rule of thirds in art, you always want things to be 3s or 5s, odd numbers, not even numbers. There. I'm going to add rule of 3 over here. And a little bit more alcohol. Again, that's the 91%. Don't use 70%, it won't work. There we go. I'm beginning to like this one a lot better. Beginning to take some shape. This one, let's see if we can salvage it. You notice I'm covering up almost most of my background, but there's enough that's still showing through that gives you a sense. If you think your color is too dark, what you do is you add more alcohol. That will lighten up your color. But as you lighten it up, it also reactivates what you've already done. That one will turn out different. And here we go to the fourth one. And add some more alcohol. And I think I want some more ruffled leaves. The blowing on it causes some of the ruffling to take effect. So now we've added the first layer. I'm going to switch colors, and I'm going to start adding blue leaves. So the yellow is way in the background. We've got the green underneath, then the yellow. And now I'm going to add Baja Blue, my favorite, if I can get it open. There we go. And as we all know, when you mix yellow and blue together, it comes to being green. So we're going to see this same effect will happen with alcohol ink. How much green did I actually get? I'm going to add just a little bit You will also find that some of the colors are heavier than others. Yellow is one of the light colors. The cheaper the alcohol ink, and you can buy cheap alcohol ink and it will do fine for experimentation and just getting the feel of how all of this reacts to each other. But the cheaper colors are much lighter. They're not as heavy. They just don't sit as heavy. Your metallic colors are very, very heavy. And it takes them a while to move. And I'll use some metallic so you can see what happens. So see, I'm getting a nice shade of green in there. And this is when you wish you say, now I just want you to stop right there. But it won't. It keeps moving. It keeps spreading. You have to learn to be patient with it. And this blue is pretty heavy. So here we go. One last one. I want that one to stay. Again, I'm working in layers. I'm from the bottom coming up, adding another petal layer, creating green as I go, which can be pretty. You never quite know. Sometimes you can make mud, but not often. Here we go, back over here to the first one. Add another layer. I'm going to add a little bit more alcohol. The alcohol also allows your alcohol ink to expand, to move. Otherwise, it kind of just sits there, which is good if you're trying to paint with it. I've seen some absolutely beautiful paintings where they've taken the alcohol ink and used it like you would an acrylic or a watercolor, but the way it reacts makes it a little bit different than those mediums. So now you can all see why I never got dinner on the table, the laundry done. I would just sit and watch it go back and forth. Kind of like those magical wands we used to have that have this glitter going up and down. We're beginning to form some nice petals there. This one I'm not too sure about. I'm going to give it one last shot, and then I'll show you another trick when you decide that you really don't like it. It's not really a trick. It's a good way to start. You do have to be patient. You have to let each layer form and come up to the top, because you don't know, because this one is not anything what I thought it was going to be when we started off. It's already changed. I'm going to manipulate it, move it. Let's do a little. If you'll notice, that was the previous petal, and the alcohol pretty much dissolves it, dissolves that edge. Okay, so if I'm looking at these, let's do one more on this one. Again, the property of threes. Add more alcohol, make it to where it moves. Mixing, marbleizing in many ways. It's kind of a marble effect. Got that one. Going to add one more to this one. See, I'll start off with the alcohol. If you notice, I'm kind of bringing these to a point in the middle, because that's going to be the middle of my flower. But, as with alcohol, it seems to do what it wants to do. I really didn't want it to go that direction, but we'll make it work. Do that one. And let's try going this way. You kind of have to look at it and see which direction do I want to go. I think I want to go this way. Again, the manipulation, trying to form petals. As in nature, they're not all perfect. There. That one's kind of fun. It's got some streaks in it. If I let it set, will it dry just like that? I hope. And this last petal for this one, we'll add the alcohol first, excuse me, the ink first, and then some alcohol. And what's going to happen? I get green, that's for sure. But my feathery edges are moving. So, will that stay? Who knows? And I'm going to do one last shot at this. If this is your last chance tile. If I don't like it, I'm going to show you what I do when I don't like the tile. Makes this fairly cheap project because these tiles are only 15 cents each. Let's see, it might work. Okay, thought I pulled it out, but I'm not finding it. This is a rose gold, and it is one of the metallic alcohol inks, and it does have, it's very heavy property. They have gold, they have silver. This is rose gold. There's several others that are very similar to that, and you can buy these separately. It does come in that starter pack. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to form the middle of the flower. This is going to be the very center, and I'm going to drop it on there. As you will see, it's heavy. It lays where it's pretty much where you put it. It does not move very often. It does reactivate the ink below. And if you don't quite like it, you can always add alcohol. And it will spread. Again, it's that chemical reaction that you don't have a lot of control on. And I guess I will make this one. How should I do that one? I'm going to make it like that, like that, and let that spread. Now I've kind of decided that I really do not like this first one that I started off on. And so this is what you do when you say, nah, that's not one going to work, not going to work, is you take another cotton ball and you take your alcohol and you wipe the slate clean and you start all over. You do go through a lot of cotton balls, but don't worry about it. It doesn't count. You just do it again. So this is why it's kind of a good way to start with alcohol ink on the tiles, is because you can just start fresh. But as I tell my friends and neighbors and people who listen to me, in many ways, art doesn't count. It brings peace to the soul, makes me happy, makes our household happy. So now I got a clean slate. I can start all over again. But now what I'm going to show you with my clean slate is a project that you can do, and what I have done several times with our grandkids, because they like to do art with their grandmother, is you take an array of Sharpies. Here we go. I'm going to take blue. And little kids can do this because it doesn't have any rhyme or reason. They don't really have to know how to draw. And now I'm going to take brown. Let's go this way. You know, kids like this. Adults like this. Let's take some yellow. I seem to like yellow. And let's try orange. So you can do this on glass, you can do it on tile, you can actually do this on fabric. We have taken t-shirts, white t-shirts, and we have just taken a Sharpie, just like this, and scribbled all over it. And the kids had fun doing that. So now what do? You're going to take the alcohol and you're going to squirt the whole thing. Pick it up and move it. And you get a rainbow of colors. If you're not real crazy about the black in the middle, take another cotton ball. And that will cause a pattern texture. Twist it around. And those 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds will think this is just great. So that is how alcohol ink works. The more you practice it, the easier it gets. The more it makes sense how to manipulate, how to blow, how to get very large images. And the important thing about it is it has to be done in layers. You start at the bottom and you work your way up. So these probably, if I were to do these and keep on going with this project, I would probably have added about 6 more layers of petals so that it keeps on going up. And then I come with a very defined center petal. So if you have any questions, you can certainly email me. I can give you my email address. It is anitakrampitz@gmail.com. That's ANITAKRAMPITZ@gmail.com. Thank you very much. Enjoy your alcohol ink.